All right, so now we know a little bit of the historical context. I guess we should finish that off and then we'll do Newton's laws. So Newton publishes his Principia. He explains the motion of the planets, and it's extraordinary. It's amazing. It's fantastic. And not a lot of people can read through it. Reading Newton's Principia Mathematica Philosophia Naturalis is not for the faint of heart. But people realize that a science has really and truly been born here. As a result, he becomes famous. He becomes a great hero to the people of England. They're proud that, you know, the greatest scientist in the world is theirs. He is knighted by the monarchs of the day, and he is given the great honor. He's put in charge of the Royal Mint just because, you know, he's really smart and, hey, we want them in our crowd. And so he does all sorts of cool stuff, is in charge of the Mint. Very innovative, very creative, as you would guess. He writes other books. He writes a great book on optics. He becomes very famous. There's a little bit of a dispute between him and somebody else in Europe who also invented calculus at the same time. So there's these calculus wars, and the British all defend Isaac Newton to the hilt, and then the Germans and the French argue against. And anyway, when it happens, so he leads the rest of his life. And when he dies, Isaac Newton is given a funeral such as the sort of thing that kings are given. An observer from Europe saw this and he said, this man was born basically almost a peasant. He was born nothing, he had no title, he was not a peer, he was not a lord, he was a baron, and yet he said this funeral that was celebrated for Isaac Newton is the sort of funeral that you would expect to be given to kings in Europe. It is that amazing and extraordinary. Isaac Newton was the superstar of his day. I mean, today, we don't remember too much about the kings and queens sort of thing like that. You know, you can get those in the history books, but everybody who studies physics studies Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton eclipses everybody at that time period. And the people at that time knew it. He's kind of the first really amazingly huge scientific superstar. He's buried in Westminster Cathedral. And his ideas, Isaac Newton, his ideas then inspire more than that. And people say, science works. You want proof? Read the Principia. The Principia proves that science works. Science works right up until that time period. You know, you could, well, is this a fad? Are we really learning anything significant here? Yeah, Isaac Newton, and it's this watershed event. Answers things without any doubt. We really have learned some amazing, extraordinary things out of this. And he inspires all sorts of changes. For one thing, the success, so this is what historians would often say, this completes the scientific revolution. From Copernicus to Isaac Newton brings us from embryonic to really kind of full-blown modern science. And it also inspires people in other ways. It inspires a new philosophical movement called the Enlightenment, which takes place. So that, remember, Isaac Newton's doing most of his stuff in the 1600s. Principia is published in 1687, stuff like that. He lives into the early 1700s. And throughout the 1700s now, this is philosophy. Philosophical movement. Isaac Newton has proved how powerful human reason can be when applied to real-world problems, that really can explain things that nobody had understood before. And so people then take those ideas of human reason and start applying them to things like politics, like how nations and states are governed. And so one friend of Isaac Newton's is named John Locke. Studied Newton's work, was tutored in it, figured it all out. He wasn't ready to do the science bit, but this idea that we can understand things through reason, we can make a better world through reason, and he starts writing ideas about human freedom. And he starts things like this, and the ideas of John Locke and Isaac Newton and other people in the Enlightenment then start inspiring other people. And so 100 years after Isaac Newton, you get things like what happened in America in 1776. And you get something like what happened in America a few years after that, when the greatest group of political geniuses the world has ever known write the American Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And all these things are absolutely steeped in this Enlightenment tradition. These are the ideas from John Locke and these philosophers who are all using Isaac Newton and these new science as their touchstone. And so that we see that the discoveries of Newton branch out beyond the sciences. It's not just about science. It's about the idea that we can make a better world through reason and logic and thought. And this inspires the Enlightenment and our ideas of freedom and democracy and all these sorts of things. You know, people like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and George Washington and John Jay and all these people who founded our country were strongly inspired by these Enlightenment ideas and by Isaac Newton's achievements himself. So we can see that Isaac Newton's shadow is long. It reaches out beyond just astronomy and physics and mathematics and the sciences. He's affected our whole view of the world and our whole culture, which is extraordinary.